Hi, I'm Tana Fireside, and I want to welcome you to Bold Strokes Bookathon, the Kiss Me Quick session. I hope you're as looking forward to this steamy session as I am. We have a great panel of readers today, along with Sandy Lowe, who's managing all of our technology. There's a chat box that we'll be monitoring throughout the session and may have time for some questions at the end. Feel free to post. We'll be checking that throughout the session. Also, put your screen in gallery mode so you can see all of our authors today during our time together. And with all those details out of the way, let's get to the authors. Today, we have a great panel. I want to welcome Jackie, Spencer, Aurora, Barbara Ann, and Kelly. We're so glad to have you with us today. We're going to be reading in that same order, so be ready. Let's start with Jackie Fein-Zachary, who is a lifelong feminist who is proud of her women's rights activism. With the love of her life, Valerie, she helped secure same-sex marriage rights in Massachusetts. Thank you for that. Her love of languages and diverse cultures inspired her travels and professional career as a French and Spanish educator. A retired marathoner, Jackie is an avid reader and vegan foodie. She is most proud of her debut novel, Harvest Dreams. Jackie, take it away.
So I am going to be reading from my novel, Harvest Dreams, but I have to tell you right off that this is a little unorthodox because, as you know, in love stories, and especially in romance stories, it's a big no-no to have the two main characters have a kiss, much less an affair with someone else. But I got permission to do this scene because it was felt that it was very important to the story. But I just had to give that little preamble because it is unusual, but hopefully you'll like it. So in this story, the two main characters, the two love interests, Sydney and Kate, have committed to doing a vineyard, thus Harvest Dreams. And I've actually even planted the vines. I hope that's not too much of a spoil. But what they have not committed to, especially Sydney, is not an emotional connection to Kate. And Kate has had it. She has had it. This is far into the book, and she's madly in love with Sydney, and Sydney is just not there. In fact, she's literally across the water. She's in Paris, but actually she's in Bordeaux. But here enter Abby. Abby is Kate's friend and her classmate at UC Davis, and she thinks that Abby, in fact, might be interested. So this night, Abby has invited over to her apartment to have dinner. As the lasagna was baking, Kate and Abby sat with another glass of wine on the two ends of the couch. After the second glass, Kate relaxed enough to stretch out her legs. She wiggled her toes. She had not put her socks or shoes back on. Put them up on the couch, Abby suggested. There's room. Kate stretched out her legs, touching Abby's hip, but then froze. She didn't know what to do or say next. They were both dressed, but she felt naked. She automatically stretched to pull her t-shirt down. Was her belly showing? Hey, that looks good on you, Abby said. Kate blushed. Maybe she wasn't ready for this. She slowly pulled her legs back up and sat up. You never told me about your visit home, Kate said. How are your parents? Abby recounted several adventures from her trip home and then asked Kate if she'd heard from Magda and Amber, who Abby knew were keeping watch over her plants. It was a wait-and-see year for the new plants, Kate explained. They would survive or not. There was nothing Kate could do to protect them, either at home or here at school. Kate felt the disappointment roll through her. She must have been wrong about Abby's feelings for her. They continued to chat pleasantly until the chime sounded that the lasagna was ready. They got up to eat. As delicious as the lasagna was, Kate wanted to be back on the couch. They continued talking at the small dining room table until Kate asked for seconds. As Abby reached for the pan, Kate noticed the unsteadiness of her hand. Weren't they a pair? After dinner, Kate offered to help Abby with the dishes, but Abby declined. I'll just be a minute. Abby, Kate hesitated. She had no idea what to say or do. All she knew is that if she didn't kiss Abby right now, she might shrivel up and die. She wanted to touch Abby's body and knew damn well she wanted Abby's hands on her too. To hell with words. She pivoted toward Abby and kissed her, pushing her gently back against the sink. Wow, Abby managed. She dropped the sponge into the sink and grabbed a towel, wiping her hands. I've wanted to kiss you for such a long time, and a lot more. Come with me. She led Kate to the bedroom. They sat down on the bed, Kate twisting so she could face Abby, and finally put her hands gently through her hair. Abby leaned into the touch. This is all new for me, Kate got out. She kissed Abby again. She loved the soft, sexy feel of her mouth. Me too, Abby responded. She slowly caressed the side of Kate's cheek, then moved her hand and placed it over Kate's heart. I've been with a few guys, she confessed, but I've never had the courage to be with a woman. Actually, I don't mean any woman, Kate. I mean you. You caught my eye freshman year when you came into class with your pile of books. You seemed so forlorn that whole year. I didn't think anyone noticed. I did. Abby dropped her hand into her lap. Not surprising, Kate said, and gently grabbed Abby's hand and brought it to her lips. Kate purposely pushed aside her memories of freshman year. She kissed Abby again. We're here now. Why don't I tell you that story another time? Abby's smile broadened. Agreed. She leaned in and kissed Kate. She was very good at the kissing part. As we're both novices, Kate said when she caught her breath, I say we start with that ponytail of yours. Even though part of her wanted to start unbuttoning Abby's blouse, the other part of her was still a bit timid. May I? Abby laughed. Of course, I'm dying here. She put both hands around Kate's back and scooted closer, taking advantage of the proximity to kiss up and down Kate's neck and shoulder. Kate had dreamed of this very moment with Sydney, but forced that thought aside too. She reached for the ribbon and pulled it loose. Abby's hair tumbled around her shoulders. So many around campus had their hair all puffed up and sprayed. Abby wore hers naturally, pulled back behind her head. Quintessential Abby. Why has she waited so long? She ran her hand through Abby's hair, kissing her. How extraordinary you are. We are. Within minutes, they'd kissed themselves into a frenzy, sprawled all over the bed. Kate's body was on fire. She finally unbuttoned Abby's blouse. Next moment, they were both naked. Kate couldn't move her hands fast enough to touch Abby's breasts. When Abby's pelvis touched Kate's, Kate moaned, barely able to breathe. She began a sensual exploration of Abby's neck, then collarbone, then kissed her breasts before daring to move lower. With each kiss, Kate's body craved more. She feathered her hand down Abby's thigh before moving slowly back up. As Abby's moan met hers, Kate continued. There was no stopping her now. That's it.
Jacqueline, thanks so much. Wow, a nice way to start off this steamy session.
We'll be right back.
What did oh wow, what did you love about writing that scene?
I think this scene was so fun to write. I think what I liked best about it was the tension between the two of them, knowing what Kate wanted and hoping that Abby wanted the same thing and making them wait. So that was fun. I'd never written a scene like that.
I love it. Well, thanks again for kicking us off in such a great way. Our next reader is going to be Spencer Greene. She's the author of Stolen Kiss, and her new book, Never a Bridesmaid, is coming out this February. She writes contemporary romance, but loves reading and watching queer media of all types. When not writing, she likes making music or riding her bike around DC. Thanks, Spencer. Look forward to your reading.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, so this is my first reading ever, but pretty excited. That was amazing, by the way. Very, very sexy scene. So I'm going to be reading from Stolen Kiss. And just to give you, I'm going to be reading from the beginning, a beginning scene, the first kiss, the first stolen kiss. And I do want to give a little bit of a warning of that it does deal with infidelity, the whole book. So I can't really have a kiss scene that doesn't deal with that. So if that's an issue for anybody, which I know it's not everyone's bag of chips, feel free to mute me until you get to the next person. But yeah, so that's the beginning. Anna, the main character, is down on her luck. She's lost her job, her apartment in New York, and she's coming home to her very villainous parents for the weekend or for a week or so. And on her way, she stops at a bar for some liquid courage and she meets a woman named Louise who has a boyfriend. They have a connection. Yeah, this is just sort of the end of that sort of first meeting. Yeah, so I'll start. It was getting late, and Anna needed to start moving towards going to see her parents. She'd been dragging her feet for the better part of 30 minutes. George was already wiping down the booths as the weird Christmas crowd was petering out. I should get going, Anna said, her words heavy. Anna could already feel a sadness begin to take over. She didn't want this conversation to end. Louise looked at her watch. Oh my God, yeah, I'm way late. I was supposed to text my boyfriend 30 minutes ago. I just totally lost track of time. The word boyfriend rung sharply in Anna's ears. They each packed their stuff and left a big tip, compensating for all the freebies. They walked out together, only to stand awkwardly in the street. The night was chilly, or was it the sudden distance between them? Well, Anna said, searching for the words, it was unexpected meeting you. I mean, it's been nice. Why was she being so weird? Anna was usually pretty able to converse, and they had been so connected inside. There was something about the shift in location that had brought a certain reality to the forefront. She meant to walk away as soon as possible, but she found that her legs weren't working properly. A lull formed and hung in the air. Louise spoke. Okay, are you sure you don't need a ride? Her tone seemed artificial. My boyfriend has a rental. He won't mind. I just texted him. He'll be here in 5. Anna was thrown off by the tone and the offer for a ride, with the boyfriend of all people. Maybe they hadn't been on the same page after all. It was jarring to shift from a comfortable connection to awareness that they were strangers. Anna was never going to see Louise again, so she decided to take a risk, one just like the many risks that had led her to her recent downfall. Anna stepped closer to Louise, never letting go of her eyes. Louise was giving her the same gaze she'd been seeing across the bar all night. I'm good, she said. I'd rather not sit in a car with the guy whose girlfriend I've been flirting with all night. Louise looked stunned, her eyes growing large. Anna held her stare. Having said it out loud felt like electricity. The connection traveled between them, permeating everything. Anna had gone as far as she could. She wasn't pushy. Not everyone was comfortable looking at the subtext. It was nice meeting you, Louise. Have a good life, I guess, she said with finality. Anna turned away from Louise and walked down the alley. Putting her hands in her pockets, she let out a regretful sigh. She tried to ignore the desire for another minute. Suddenly, she recognized the sound of footsteps behind her. Wait, Louise said, slowing down as she approached. Anna stayed in her spot, obedient to Louise's words. She waited to hear more, but Louise didn't speak. She was breathing hard, her cheeks and lips flushed red. Louise didn't need to speak, it was already in the atmosphere. Louise and Anna moved towards each other purposefully, stopping within a hair's breadth of each other. Anna's heart pounded. Louise's hands were on Anna's waist. Anna could feel the magnetism. They stood for the longest moment with their foreheads touching, not in hesitation, but in anticipation. Anna reached up to touch Louise's face, her eyes never leaving Louise's lips. Before Anna could process what was happening, Louise kissed her fiercely with warm, soft lips. Anna's body vibrated with excitement, and she kissed back, deepening it more. She was completely suspended in the feeling, in the moment. She felt Louise's tongue begin to explore her own as they melted together. A moan escaped Louise, and their kiss deepened again. She felt untethered. She let herself feel Louise, not thinking for a moment about the consequences. Anna couldn't remember who pulled away first, but their lips separated, their foreheads still touched, tied together by an imaginary string. I've been wanting to do that all night, Louise said, as if she'd been holding back the words. She was smiling wistfully, and Anna couldn't help but smile back. As their breathing slowed, reality began to set in. Louise began to untie the string. Somehow, Anna resisted the urge to pull her close again. Anna started, but Louise put a finger to her lips. Let's just leave it at this. Anna felt the excruciating loss of Louise's hand on her body, and she started to back away. She wanted to be covered in Louise anything to stop the moment from ending. Goodbye, Anna, Louise said. Anna searched for something to say, something to prolong their interlude, but she heard what was under Louise's words, a request to let her go, and so she held back her protest. Bye, Louise, Anna said, the words like razor blades in her throat. They both walked their separate ways. Anna looked back. Louise did not. On Anna's journey home, she replayed the kiss on repeat. She reveled in it, from the grocery store to the cab. Her movements felt strange. She felt altered from the Anna who first came to Trenton a few hours ago. It was just a moment with a beautiful person. Leave it at that, she thought. But Anna couldn't help but think, in a different place, at a different time, what could have been. And that's
Nice
it.
job for your first reading.
Oh, thank you.
That's fun. And just a reminder, Sandy's posting all of the links for the books in our chat. So if you want to know what happens next, please feel free to click on those and get your book right away. Spencer, this is your first book?
This is my debut, yep.
Fantastic. Good job. And how did you come on this particular reading for today?
Well, it was the only kiss scene that didn't make me describe way more sex and things like that. So I sort of was doing it for myself, and it, gave away the least. But also I think, first kisses are exciting and special, and yeah, I wanted to read this one, so yeah.
Sure makes me want to find out what happens next. Thanks for that.
No problem.
Our next reader is Aurora Rey. Aurora Rey is a college dean by day, award-winning lesbian romance author the rest of the time, except when she's cooking, baking, riding the tractor, or pining for goats. She grew up in small town South Louisiana, daydreaming about New England. She keeps a special place in her heart for the South, especially the food and the way women are raised to be strong, even if they're taught not to show it. She's the author of the Cape and Romance series and several standalone contemporary lesbian romance novels and novellas. She's been a finalist for the Lambda Literary and Golden Crown Literary Society Awards, but loves reader feedback the most. She lives in Ithaca, New York, with her dog and whatever wildlife has taken up residence in the pond. Aurora, glad to have you here today and look forward to your reading.
Thank you. And thank you for that lovely but really long intro. I was a total slacker and sent you a short version at a ridiculous hour yesterday evening. So apologies to you and to the audience for listening to that very drawn out bio. But thank you. I'm super excited to be here. I'm going to be reading from Sweat Equity, which came out in October. It's the first of the renovation romances, and it features Maddie Barrow, who is the eldest sibling and kind of manager of her family's construction business, and Cy Trevino, who is a cheesemaker who has just moved to town and bought herself a money pit. And she knows nothing about DIY, but her budget is tight. And so Maddie has agreed to help her learn some DIY so she can do some of the work herself. And the scene I'm going to read is they've just decided to give Cy's kitchen cabinets a coat of paint. Maddie started with one of the lowers, crawling partway in and propping herself on her side to reach the back. Getting a perfect finish is less important here, obviously, but you do have to contort yourself to get into the corners. Cy hunched over and peered inside. Is it wrong to say I'm enjoying your contortions? It might have been a joke. It could have been a come-on. Like so many of her interactions with Cy, she couldn't quite tell, which proved equal parts maddening and arousing. Don't get too comfortable. You're next. She finished the edging and scooted out, gesturing for Cy to take her place. Cy made a production of it, grunting and groaning and insisting a body wasn't built to bend that way. In the end, she made it in and out just fine, getting paint where it needed to go and only a little in other places. They made their way around the room, stopping to order pizza just after 7, debating the relative merits of pineapple and agreeing it had its place, preferable with ham, hot peppers, and a good amount of char. Since Bedlington's Soul Pizzeria couldn't be trusted with such tall order, they went for pepperoni and extra cheese. When it arrived, they ate cross-legged on the floor, with a bottle of Cabernet Cy poured into coffee mugs. For not the first time, Maddie found herself thinking that for an evening that was in no way a date, it was turning out a lot more fun and a lot more like a date than many of the actual dates she'd been on lately. After polishing off the pizza, they got back to work. She told herself finishing the first coat would put them in a good place. Mostly, though, she wasn't ready to leave. They took turns with the brush and roller, crawling into the lowers and perching on a ladder to reach the nooks and crannies of the uppers. Snippets of conversation here and there, but mostly quiet, with moments of surreptitious appreciation of Sai's butt. Sai stepped off the ladder after finishing the last one with a streak of paint across her cheek. Maddie chuckled and went to wipe it. Only Sai's head turned and her lips brushed Maddie's thumb instead. She thought Sai might jerk away, but she didn't. If anything, Sai went almost eerily still. Sorry, Sai said, barely above a whisper. I'm not. She heard the words more than she intended to say them, but the look in Sai's eyes told her it hadn't been a mistake. The faintest hint of a smile played across Sai's mouth. Then I'm not either. She could take that as a gracious pass, laugh the whole thing off, and move along. Only she didn't want to. She'd been thinking about Sai for weeks now, wanting to kiss her for almost as long. And for whatever lines it blurred between them, whatever teasing would inevitably come from her siblings and Clover, she had no doubt in her mind that Sai wanted that kiss too. When it came down to it, that's all that mattered. Maddie studied Sai's mouth for a second before looking back into Sai's eyes. Then she closed hers and let instinct take over. She brushed her lips over Sai's and found a lingering trace of red wine, smooth and rich with an earthy lushness. Warm, sure. She might have initiated the kiss, but Sai didn't hesitate to take over. Well, not exactly take over. More like she met Maddie in the middle. A delicious push and pull born of desire and curiosity. Sai's tongue traced her bottom lip, sucked it gently. After willing her knees not to buckle, and then her collapsing into Sai's arms, Maddie began her own exploration of Sai's lips, her mouth. She gripped the front of Sai's shirts even as Sai held her shoulder. Not possessive, really, but it seemed to convey the same sentiments pulsing through Maddie, the ones that said that Sai would happily rip her clothes off, given the opportunity. She was this close to proposing exactly that when Sai broke the kiss. Wow. Maddie chuckled. Understatement. You okay? Was that okay? Sai searched her face, desire still apparent, but concern too. Only if your definition of okay is fucking fantastic, aside from the fact that she already wanted more. Sai smiled. I'll take that. You? She asked. If we're going with your definition, I'm very okay.
Thank you. Wow.
Thanks.
Wine, cheese, kissing. Are there anything better than that combination? Yum. Thanks for that. And how did you decide on that particular scene?
I agree with Spencer that like the first kiss is always a lot of fun. The back and forth, still that kind of tinge of will they, won't they, especially for the reader because they're in the, not so much will they, won't they, but when will they? And so kind of getting to just turn that dial ever so slightly to the they are and now.
I love it. I can't wait to read it. As as a former cheesemonger, this is going to be a fun read, I'm sure.
Well, thank you.
Our next reader today is Barbara Ann Wright. She writes fantasy and science fiction novels starring LGBTQIA characters. She's won 6 Rainbow Awards, 2 Golden Crown Literary Awards, and has been shortlisted in the Forward Review Book of the Year Awards and the Lambda Awards. She's also made the must-read list on Tor.com, Book Riot, and Sci-Fi.com. Her newest book, Haunted by Myth, is a modern-day romantic comedy starring Helen of Troy. Love it. Barbara Ann, thanks for reading for us today.
Thank you, and thanks you for emphasizing why I'm such a big deal.
Get all her books today.
Okay. In this scene, Helen of Troy, who runs a sanctuary for paranormal creatures, has just gone through a harrowing adventure with Chloe, who hunts paranormal creatures, and they're trying to figure out if they're enemies or if they can work together. One important note, Chloe has a ghostly companion, Ramses II, whom Helen cannot see. Chloe, can we have another word in private? Helen asked. They stopped a few feet into the trees, out of earshot and away from prying eyes. When Chloe stopped, she gestured to her other side. I'm not really alone, remember? Right. Well, as long as Ramses couldn't butt in. Now that Chloe waited, staring with those big dark eyes, Helen found herself fumbling for what else to say. She decided to stick with the business at hand, at least tangentially. So you work with demons too, huh? She knows she sounded like an asshole even before Chloe frowned, but it was out there now. And maybe it was for the best. If she couldn't ignore the danger, she could still drive it away. Chloe frowned harder, mouth twisted down. Would you prefer that we killed him? He begged us for help. Would you have banished him or chained him up in your yard? It's a sanctuary, Helen said, that I run for paranormal beings, ruthlessly hunted by humans, thank you. And why on earth was she defending herself? Chloe's cheeks flamed brighter, her tears all gone, her eyes flashing, one bit of dark hair stuck to her sweaty forehead. Look, all we want to do is keep humans safe, like you want to keep paranormal creatures safe. Shouldn't we be working together? Her jaw seemed to tremble, and Helen sensed more from her than anger, more reasons to want to work together besides the logic behind it. Helen took a step forward, but her anger was quickly morphing to something else, something that reacted to seeing Chloe all hot and passionate again, something that wanted to see more. We have to protect innocent people, Chloe said to Helen's lips, as if she couldn't help staring, human or supernatural. And yet you allow human monsters to live. They had to stay on topic, even as they stared each other down, nearly toe to toe. If we had a paranormal prison, sure, Chloe said, but if the general public knew about these creatures, it would be worse for them, believe me. She jerked her thumb at the clearing. And as I've already proved, I don't destroy lives if I don't have to. When Helen licked her lips, Chloe stumbled as if she'd lost her place. You know, you should work with someone else who, I don't want anyone else, Helen said. Chloe gasped, the sudden sound like a lure that Helen had to resist. I mean, I don't want to work with and Helen couldn't help looking at Chloe's parted lips because some things in the universe seemed inevitable, like Chloe's gravity. This pull between them felt so damn genuine, like Chloe's emotions, hung on the outside for anyone to see. For all her anger, she cared, and Helen could feel it radiating from her like heat from an oven. And she could feel the desire, too. That was practically a sun. The feeling pulled her in even more, magnifying her own feelings like a convex lens. Chloe looked to the side, breaking the spell a little, talking to Ramses, no doubt. Right, they weren't alone. Helen took a step back and breathed. I will give some thought to working with you. Let me give you my number. She patted for her pockets, then remembered she was wearing a wetsuit, and now she looked like an idiot. Here, Chloe produced a pen from her bag along with a slip of paper. I'd write it on my hand, but it's so sweaty out here. Her cheeks turned pink again. I mean, I'm sweaty. It's hot. She looked away as if having her own dumbass feelings. Helen jotted one of her numbers down and handed it back. How had they gone from angry to lustful to nervous so quickly? She chuckled, her memories catapulting her back in time. This is like a really awkward first date. Chloe went 7 shades of purple, but she laughed like some of the tension was leaving her, too. Well, she said, I haven't had one of those in a while. A surprise in itself. I bet I've got you beat there, Helen said, probably by several 100 years, maybe 1,000. When you were in Egypt, right? Chloe asked. Helen leaned back, nearly startled out of her shoes. You know I was in Egypt? I read that somewhere, Chloe said. I would have gone there, too, to get away from Menelaus. What kind of asshole was he? He marries the most beautiful woman in the world, and now I find out that you're also intelligent, wise, and obviously care a lot about people. Her lips curled in and she cleared her throat, looking down sheepishly. I'm sorry, I get carried away. I really shouldn't be here. You know, my sister Jamie would be handling this a lot better than me. She glanced to the side as if hearing Ramses again. Helen took her hand, her angry, lustful, embarrassed emotions tumbling once again too flattered and touched and awestruck and protective. I didn't know your sister, but it's impressive that you're doing as well as you are if this is a job you were unprepared for. She ran her thumb along the back of Chloe's hand. I think you're doing very well indeed. Chloe stared as if Helen was Aphrodite herself, and when she stepped forward, Helen waited, letting it happen, accepting the kiss with grace, dignity. Until Chloe's lips lingered on hers and her body seemed to move on its own, she wrapped her arms around Chloe and nearly lifted her, bringing them flush against each other. When Chloe moaned, Helen leaned down and grabbed her leg, lifting it higher. Chloe's hands were in her hair and their tongues had found each other, and even Helen's godhood was rising as if celebrating how fucking good it felt. Until a shock to the ribs reminded her that Ramses was watching. Helen nearly dropped Chloe's legs and had to steady her before they stepped away from each other. Right, Helen said, breathing through the desire to drop to the jungle floor and have earth-shattering sex no matter who was watching. So we can't, right, she rubbed her side. Did he shock you? Chloe breathed like a bellows, and she was blushing as she looked to the side where Ramses was no doubt giving her an earful. Yeah, I get it, she said. She frowned darkly. You mentioned Elamia earlier, Helen. We've heard she's behind all these traps and such. Helen shook her head. She can't leave the sanctuary. So you do have her, Chloe said. Damn. And here she thought she'd never have to worry about verbal sparring with Chloe. That was it. No more kissing people she was supposed to be hiding stuff from. That's it.
How fun. Kissing, first kiss while being watched by people that you know. I like it.
People who've been dead thousands of years on top of that. So there's that.
So what made you pull this scene?
Well, I needed a kissing scene, and I have so much running and jumping and climbing trees that they rarely slow down for the kissing. So I wanted something that was both passionate and awkward and had a little bit of the humor that I tried to instill in the whole book.
I love that. I love that combination of humor and history and a little, not quite voyeurism, but a little, little bit of spice to make things a little bit more tense. That was really fun. Thanks for that.
Thanks.
Our next reader is Kelly Fryer, and she writes with her amazing wife, me. She spent most of the past 4 years traveling around the US in an RV, which is where we're at today. Partly that's because the woman never sits still. Before becoming a romance novelist, Kelly was a teacher, a minister, a nonprofit CEO, and even ran for public office. Let's just say she has a lot of experience to draw from when writing stories about strong women who have interesting jobs, love their friends, care about the community, and get the happy endings they deserve. Bold Strokes has published 2 of our books so far, Vintage in Vogue and Whiskey and Wine, and a 3rd will be released this spring. Thanks, Kelly. Take it away.
Thanks. So I'm reading from our first novel, Vintage in Vogue, which was released last year. This is a contemporary small town enemies to lovers romance. Senna Abrigo is a wealthy developer with a vision that will change everything in this little small town called Owen Station. Hazel Butler is the town librarian who is committed to preserving the town's past. Senna has been renting Hazel's casita while she's in town, but this scene takes place in the rare books and special collections room of the Owen Station Library. Don't touch those. Startled, Senna snatched back her hand. Those are a 1910 set of Harvard classics, and yes, they are bound in Moroccan leather. Leather bound, eh? Senna turned slowly with a sly smile and took 2 steps toward Hazel. I like the sound of that, don't you? When Hazel didn't move, Senna took 2 more steps forward until she was close enough for Hazel to catch a scent of the prickly pear soap she left for guests in the casita. Hazel still couldn't move. Why didn't she just run away? She wanted to. She didn't want to. Maybe swirled in the air like the ubiquitous dust old books attracted. She was trying so hard to think of something, anything that wasn't Senna. Trying to think. Senna didn't seem the least bit conflicted. Her full chest rose and fell steadily. Locks of silky dark hair draped along her strong, square jawline. One eyebrow arched, pulling the corner of her mouth upward along it. She looked deep into Hazel's eyes and stepped forward again until they were almost nose to nose. So, I came for a history lesson. Senna was practically purring. Teach me something. Hazel blinked. Okay. She moistened her lips with her tongue and swallowed hard. The Harvard classics are 50 books thought to be the essence of a liberal education. Uh-huh. Go on. Hazel wasn't sure her legs were going to hold her up, but somehow she managed to produce actual words. This set is from a very limited edition given to this library around the same time that my great-grandparents arrived by our town fathers who hoped Owen Station would be a civilized place to live and work. Civilized, The corner of Senna's mouth ticked further upward. Hazel stared at it, wondering what it would be like to taste it. Uh-huh, Hazel nodded weakly. Civilized. And did they succeed? Did Owen Station become civilized? Hazel couldn't breathe. I'm not sure. She closed her eyes, told that little voice to shut up, and willed Senna to lean in and kiss her. Hazel snapped open her eyes. Senna was staring over her shoulder. What are those? Senna asked. Then she stepped around Hazel to stand beside the large wooden table covered with old photographs. Hazel turned to and moved to stand beside her. These are what you came to see. Hazel sounded a little squeaky in her own ears, but at least she was able to talk. These are photographs taken during Owen Station's heyday, right around the turn of the 20th century. And this? That's a map of Owen Station from 1918. Show me around. Hazel pulled the map closer, and Senna moved closer too. They were shoulder to shoulder, touching. The scent of prickly pear was overwhelming. Every hair on the back of Hazel's neck was vibrating, and everything below Hazel's belly button was screaming for attention. But Senna seemed wholly focused on the map. This is Main Street, right? Senna asked, pointing. Don't touch it, Senna. Hazel was back on the job. I'm sorry. You're wearing gloves. These are precious documents. My bad, Senna said. It's okay. It turned out Senna wasn't uncaring. She was just untrained. Hazel used the map to give her an overview of the city. Tracing her gloved finger along Main Street, Hazel described every building, who designed it, when it was built, the litany of occupants over the years, the year her father led the massive effort to renovate it. Your father sounds like a visionary, Hazel. I think I would have liked him. Hazel turned toward Senna. She was so beautiful. And she actually seemed interested in what Hazel was saying, in the buildings, in the history. It was an irresistible combination. I think maybe Dad would have liked you too. Senna took Hazel's gloved hands in her own and gently squeezed them. Will you tell me about him sometime? Hazel stopped breathing. There was the question Senna verbalized. Will you tell me about your dad? But a very different question was dancing in Senna's eyes. The question. Hazel needed to answer. Go ahead, answer her, tell her no. You're not kissing her, not now, not ever. But Hazel didn't want to say no. She was tired of saying no. No to love, no to adventure, no to life. She needed to feel something again. The stomach-dropping thrill of a roller coaster, the dizzying high from looking over the edge of a canyon. She wanted to feel like herself again, adventurous, creative, free. Willing that irritating little voice to shut the hell up, Hazel gave an almost imperceptible nod. And that was all Senna needed.
So you're going to toy with us?
I'm toying with you.
No kiss?
It's coming.
So
it's right here in Vintage and Vogue.
Tell us why you picked that scene, what you liked about it.
Well, I like that scene because of the way you see these two characters really you can really feel the heat between the two characters. Sandy in the chat box is crying because there's no kiss. It's coming, I promise. One of the things I love about this scene is the way you see the internal conflict that's happening inside of Hazel. Hazel has just been so closed off for so long for a variety of reasons. I'm really getting some heat in the chat box. Hazel's been so closed off for so long for a bunch of reasons, which you'll understand if you read Vintage and Vogue. And you see this internal tension that's happening inside of Hazel, and the way in which Senna is beginning to break things open for Hazel. Sex and this, what's happening in Hazel's body, the sexual relationship, it actually plays a really important role in the emotional development of Hazel. And so anyway, I love this scene. And I'm sorry, everyone, you just have to read the rest of the book.
Kelly Fryer, rule breaker, Fireside. that is not untrue. So we have, thanks for that reading and for the painful cliffhanger. Yeah, I agree, Anne. We are in pain out here. I'm in pain here. I don't know what to say. This is what I have to live with.
There is a question in the box though, from one of our. We have two of them.
So, what do you do for research and resources for kissing scenes to keep them so fresh and unique across different books? All right. How about Aurora? How would you answer that? How do you keep your kissing scenes fresh?
Well, I just kiss as many people as I possibly can.
I love it.
It's interesting because I do think mechanically there are only so many ways like lips and tongues and mouths kind of move over each other. And so where you get the freshness is that tension, right? That these two characters that are unique have thoughts and feelings and hopes and fears and hesitations and desires that are unique to them. And trying to sort of draw that out is where it gets really fun.
How about you, Spencer?
Yeah, similar to Aurora, I've logged the hours, so gotta sort of sift through the memories. No, I definitely think it can get redundant. And the only thing I can think of is to like remember or imagine and then sort of describe it in that way. So yeah, I mean, just gotta keep getting out there and making out with people, I think.
So we're taking volunteers. If you'd like to sign up for research, just
line forms to the left.
Yeah.
Nothing sexier than, hey, will you kiss me? I'm doing this for research.
Okay, just for the record. Just for the record.
Science.
Bring your own chapstick.
You will.
I am not looking for volunteers, just for the record.
Barbara Ann?
Well, since I write science fiction and fantasy, I would love to say that, you can always have two people kissing and then have something weird happen, like suddenly a tentacle. But I've never done anything like that before. I think if I did, Sandy'd be like, get out of here with your tentacles. But I think I try to keep it fresh by just the things that's happening to them, by keeping like, okay, what are they feeling right now? And then of course, if I can make it funny, I'll make it funny.
Somebody's suggesting a bold stroke kissing booth. I think that's
we're all getting COVID. Yeah.
How about Jacqueline? What do you do for research?
I think I just draw from life experience. So that's easy for me. I've had a lot of experience, and a caveat, I have found the love of my life. So my experimenting is just with us, but it's just life experience. But it's, I took the question, I mean, how do you keep it fresh? Meaning with all your different books, but
yeah, for sure.
It was easy for me because this was my first book. So I just sort of poured my heart and experienced right into that and had a lot of fun writing it.
I think too, personalities, each of the characters' personalities as they come into play, sort of set up that sense for uniqueness.
Yeah.
And we have got another question. Let's see. Speaking of watching from the outside, I'm still in awe listening and watching you all read. What a treat. Thanks. I've also sent a few questions and we've got a couple minutes here. How do you know when your characters are ready for that first kiss? Barbara Ann, let's start with you.
There's a pause long enough in the action that they can actually do it.
Okay.
It's hard to say. It's sort of like, like I like you're writing and you're like, I feel there should be kissing here. And I mean, if you've done the whole like, will they, won't they a little bit, but not talking about sex, it's just the kissing. If you've built up the romantic tension enough, that you're like, okay, let's pop that bubble. I think it's just something that you sense is happening in the story.
Thanks. How about you, Kelly?
Same. I think I find, as much as we try to have a plot and to know where the story is going, the characters, they have a mind of their own, and I often find the characters, at least the character I'm writing, we each take one of the characters in our books, and the character that I'm writing, I find tells me when she's ready.
How about you, Spencer?
Yeah, I mean, I think that for it to work, depending on what type of story it is, I think both characters have to want to kiss. So one could want to, one doesn't, or they both don't when they start, and then they're working towards, and maybe that's sort of even just like the purpose of the romance in the sense to like that. And then there has to be an environment, kind of like what Barbara was saying with like not an action scene or like, where you're no longer like in a room surrounded by people, except someone did from this panel, right? And then yeah, like basically they both have to want to, and then the circumstances, and then boom.
I like that. Consent is such at the top of people's consciousness now, and to have characters need to be on that same page before that kiss happens. I liked even in your reading where you have that infidelity, there still wasn't the presumption that I'm just going to kiss you even and throw it all to the wind, but I'm going to wait for that moment.
Yeah, and for me, I don't think about consent when I'm writing, but I do think it's very hot to be told what someone's going to do before they do it. And I think sometimes that can be interesting enough to sort of, or like signaling is part of the whole thing. The pop-up kiss is sort of, it's like it's just a little scarier for me to imagine.
Well, thank you all for being with us. We've just got about a minute left, and I know there's a number of things happening in the chat box, along with all of those links for the books. There's still more panels to enjoy today, and the ones you might have missed have all been recorded to watch at your leisure, so don't forget to go back and check some of those out. All the books that you've heard today are available at Bold Strokes. Sandy's put the link in the chat box for your convenience. They're also all on sale, I think, through the end of the month. Share the links with your friends and enjoy. And Sandy, I just want to say, I want to moderate all these steamy kissing panels in the future. And next time I'll get my wife to behave and actually do the appropriate assignments. Thank you all for being here. I hope to see you at some of the other panels today.